The show rolls on. It is midday here in Vegas. It's really 3 in the afternoon for me, and I'd like to welcome my next guest, Cris Grossmann. Cris, what's your time zone right now? What time zone are you aligned on?
So I'm based out of Austin, but right now I think I'm getting closer to the Pacific one.
That's not a big difference.
It is not.
And not that 3 hours is big for New York, but it definitely screws you up a little bit. You have a fascinating background, everything from chemical engineering to where you are now. You've been around the block internationally, worked with some amazing companies, created some amazing products. But let's start where we are now and work our way backwards.
Mm-hmm.
What is Beekeeper? What does it do and who's it for?
Yeah, for sure. So Beekeeper is a frontline platform that makes the lives easier of frontline workers. That's our biggest mission. We know frontline work is hard. If you think about housekeepers, people in retail, drivers, etc., it's just hard work. You're on your feet the whole time, and you have shifts and schedules that are not the friendliest ones.
It's the lifeblood of our society too.
Exactly.
Makes things happen.
You have language barriers, etc., and we try with technology to help those folks and their organizations to be more productive, more engaged, better retained, more efficient at work. So that's what we do at Beekeeper. It's a mobile app that employees will download onto their phones and get everything they need for their jobs right there, from their shifts and schedules to their payment stops to the communication around the company, trainings, documentation, everything that they typically only get through a bulletin board or through oral communication from their managers. That's the type of work that we just love doing and that we help companies get better at.
Where was the kernel of need for this product to be developed?
Look, I would even go back as far as my infancy. Both of my grandparents were frontline workers. They both worked in different types of factories. And I had the fortune to spend a lot of time visiting them in afternoons, summers. I worked with them, etc. And the really alarming thing is that all of those things that I saw in the 80s, in the way that they were working with their teams, are still very much true nowadays for the frontline. So it hasn't really moved that much. It's paper-based. It's that oral communication, and it's just a very inefficient way of working for the frontline workers. And we're excited how technology and the jump to mobile AI technologies can actually help leapfrog a lot of that drag that organizations still have now.
Everybody's on their phone these days. Frontline workers, everybody on it too. But I want to go back to what you said that was really interesting. Why hasn't this particular sector of the market, frontline workers and the tech associated with them, caught up to where we are now with other sectors? Why not?
That's a great question that I think even turns a little bit into the philosophical nature of frontline.
Please.
And I think there are different levels. I'll start with the highest level of philosophical disconnect that there is between the frontline and the rest of the organizations. I think the frontline, historically, coming from the Industrial Revolution even, has been regarded as a replaceable, low-end type of asset in the company that you say, look, they need to come, do their stuff, and then just go home. And hourly workers, replaceable. I will not invest as a company too much in them. And fast forward to our time, I think the pandemic has shown us that they are the essential workers. They keep our societies running, and they're more crucial than ever. So we see a lot of companies starting to wake up to this disconnect of, wow, we actually forgot them when it comes to the systems that we run, the processes that we have. And it just hasn't caught up with our time. And that's, I think, the very exciting opportunities for many of organizations to unlock a huge deal in efficiency that they can gain from investing in this segment of the workforce.
So when I checked out the product, I'm going to get into your 3 pillars of the product in a moment here, but one of the things going philosophical is like, if you're a company and you're empowering your employee with this tool, that's showing them how much more you care about them, that you want to make their experience within your company. We care about you so much, Cris. Here's all your benefits, here's your pay schedule, here's your schedule. We're going to make it easy for you because we care. It's not like, hey, go into the break room, go look at the schedule, and all that.
Exactly.
We're going to empower you to have what you need and the tools that you need. So from an employee retention, that's a big differentiator within a lot of these organizations.
It makes a huge difference. Definitely.
Let's talk about the 3 pillars that make up Beekeeper's mission, and we'll break down each one of them. First, simplify the day-to-day of frontline managers. How is the tool helping the leadership?
Yeah. So we find managers are probably the most disregarded and forgotten lever that companies have. They have a massive multiplying effect. So you have studies like Gallup, and we also see it in our frontline trend report of how whatever the frontline manager feels and thinks about the company, engagement, productivity, is just multiplied by however big their teams are. And they tend to be really big. So we have been focusing on helping those unsung heroes who are the frontline managers just get a break in terms of the big amount of admin work that they have to do,
Right.
the paperwork they have to do, the communication relaying that they're doing between the corporate and
focus on leader.
translating into it. So we're helping them a lot with those type of mundane tasks that our technology can take from their hands and basically free them up to do what they can do best, which is coaching their teams, being in front of
Love it.
customers, driving revenue, etc., instead of being bogged down with admin and paperwork that they don't have to be doing that type of thing.
We touch on the enhanced employee experience. We spoke about that earlier on. Third pillar is building organizational trust.
Yes, and I think that goes back to this philosophical disconnect that we see where the frontline workers tend to not trust by default their organizations, and maybe rightly so, because over time it hasn't been the
right?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
that old
exactly.
that old way of thinking.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So we're really building those bridges for leaders to be able to get much closer to the front line, listen better to them, and be able to act much quicker on early signals that the frontline workers, they are the face of the company, they're doing the hard job, they not really have so many incredible insights of how organizations can become better, but it's hard to capture that feedback and that input. So by building those bridges in both directions, from information flowing from the frontline into the leadership, but also the leadership being able to be closer to the frontline, that just helps build that organizational trust. It's one of those squishy soft factors that can either accelerate or be a huge break for organizations.
I want to go back, and I'm taking a look at your bio right now, and I remember looking on the plane yesterday. This mix you have of Swiss and Mexican family. What side were the grandparents on that you were referring to before?
So I have one Swiss side of the family, one Mexican side of the family. They actually both lived in Mexico because my Swiss part immigrated there. And yeah, it was, I would say, a very big school for me in terms of that cultural differences and frontline disconnect, as we call it.
So you take your background, you take growing up, and you have this entrepreneurial spirit, but where did that come from? Where it got you? You're a chemical engineer, right?
Yeah.
How does that transition to what you're doing today?
Yes, I would say the family background was certainly the starting point to go into industrial
And Mexico City,
chemical
one of my
engineering.
favorite cities. Great
Yeah,
city.
thanks so much. It's a great place.
A little big. And I'm
So-
from New York. when a native New Yorker says, "Oh my God, Mexico City is big," it's shit.
It is big.
And someone asked me, like, how would you explain Mexico City? And I said, if you took the 5 boroughs of New York,
Yeah.
and you put them all together, remove the rivers, and then you multiplied it by 10.
That's kind of like Mexico City. Agree. Yeah, so back to the question of how it
I
formed
digress.
me, I think, no, it's fine. It's certainly that family background from the factories. My experience also as a chemical engineer I worked actually on the other end of the front line, which was the pharma industry, and the disconnects continue to be the same. So I would say those two factors were definitely forming into building what Beekeeper was. My father was an entrepreneur, so the DNA of starting something and building it out definitely came from him. And I think that's the mix that got me going into what became Beekeeper nowadays.
What was that first, as an entrepreneur, that first lesson learned the hard way? I like to say the first punch in the face.
I would say the first punch in the face is always focus on your customers and make them happy. That's the number one thing for me as a mantra, followed very closely by your team is everything. It all works or doesn't work, lives and dies by the team you have around you. So focusing on your customers and getting a great team around you, those two things are definitely big mantras for.
Were you always a natural people leader, or was that a skill that you needed to develop yourself?
I would say I certainly had to learn and continue to learn around it for sure. But I would say the focus on being a people leader and a people person is something I learned from my mom. She's a great people leader and a great people person. So that was also the early lessons on that, yeah.
And as a business owner, what you do, dare I say, is not unique. There are other products out there in the marketplace, but what differentiates Beekeeper from some of the other frontline work tools that are out there?
Yeah, for sure. I do think we're just different than all of those. So I wouldn't say we are not unique in that perspective. So I think this approach of putting ourselves in the foot of the frontline workers and building a frontline platform that really is tailored to their needs of the frontline workers and the frontline teams is just really unique. So much so that I do spend a lot of my time going and visiting our customers. I was just a couple of weeks ago with one of our customers, which is the cleaning service in Berlin, touring around Berlin in one of the waste collection trucks with them. And that is just to show that we do spend a lot of time putting ourselves in the shoes of the frontline workers. And that strong combination of it's something that drives retention and efficiency.
Right.
It's very different than what we otherwise see. Yeah.
So let's go back to what you're talking about with spending time with the waste management professionals in Berlin. What was a big insight for you? What was a big aha moment, as we like to say?
Big aha moment. So one big aha moment,
experience.
the biggest summary is frontline work is just damn hard. And I consider myself pretty in shape and well trained. I do triathlons and all that kind of stuff. But man, spending like 8 hours with them on the truck, getting the containers from the basements in Berlin, taking them to the truck back, it's a whole other level of workout and level of physical strain on you and the team. And they just do it like this. So
it's a different breed.
It's a whole other level. That huge respect to all of the frontline workers, really, for them. And the other big insight is technology can have a huge impact on that. So as I was driving through the streets of Berlin, one of the folks I was driving with, his name was Tony. So Tony was super positive, always in a great mood. And we're like, hey, Tony, like, how is it that you're so happy and what do you enjoy so much about your job? He turned to me and said, you know what, Chris? The trick is I don't see this as a job. For me, it feels much more like a hobby. I'm like, how come so? Tell me more about that. And he told me, well, I get to spend time with great people outside. Our leaders really do take a lot of care of us. And the company is just transparent and enables us with the information that we need to get our jobs done. So this is a place where I can see myself growing old and getting old. So imagine just that type of statement and feeling from this company, which we started working 7 years ago. And at that time, it was hard to reach the front line. You didn't necessarily have the type of retention rates that we're seeing right now. So seeing that change over this journey that we have been working with and those type of statements of I want to grow old here, I think it's a great attestament of how they have executed amazingly on their frontline strategies.
I love that you shared that side of the story, and I want to go to more the quant side of it too. When we talk about Beekeeper's 2024 Frontline Workforce Pulse Report, what are a couple of those key takeaways when we're looking at it from a more methodical, formalized report versus I'm going to ride for the day with the garbage crew?
Yeah, for sure. So this was
sanitation workers.
Yes. So this was probably one of the largest studies conducted in the frontline worldwide in terms of the scale. We talked to 8,000 frontline workers across the world, and the insights were actually quite shocking. So the first one is, at that time, and we are running our survey right now for 2025, we're starting to get the new trends, but retention is still the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for frontline organizations. So we still see, at that time in 24, it was around 52% of the frontline workers had changed jobs in the last 12 months.
A lot of turnover,
Lots of turnover. That number has come down now. For 25, we're seeing that come down to more of a 45-ish%, which is already a good improvement, but 45% is still a big number and there's still a lot to do. So I think that's insight number one. So there's a lot of turnover. There is actually a regression. We're going in the right direction, but organizations can double down on what is working. So what is actually working? Focus on the frontline manager as the multiplier. That's again back to the question we talked about before. I think that's one of the unseen biggest opportunities for organizations in 25 to make a quick, big difference. How do you do it? Is the biggest lever you have with frontline managers is to support them with the right tools and remove 3 blockers that they have. One of them is around communication within the organization. The second one is admin processes and paperwork. And the third one is around training. So those are 3 big levers that we're seeing for the frontline managers to be well supported. Why is that important? Because we know that when the frontline manager feels well supported, they are engaged, and that engagement is multiplied within their teams. So that's, I would say, the chain of actions and moves that we see are really important for frontline companies to be thinking about as they plan for 25. How do I retain my people? How do I find the talent I need to retain, etc.? The trick is focusing on the ones you have, and even more so on the managers to get the balance.
That is fantastic. It really applies to any business out there, not just for frontline workers. Really, it comes down to how you treat your employees. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And if technology could enable you to spend more of the human side of the business, then the money's going to come. The ROI is going to be there to invest.
100%.
And last but not least, where have you felt that you have grown the most yourself as a leader of an organization? When you think about who you are, the stage of your life, the stage of your career, what's
What I think? I think for sure, as we have scaled from being 2 people to now over 200 and plus bees around the world, I think just the communication skills and being clear with the team on what we need to achieve, where the ship is going for everybody around the world. Since the pandemic, I think the uncertainty, the turmoil has been massive. And I think just being upfront, clear, transparent on where the journey is leading and what we're set up to achieve, that definitely is one of the biggest areas that I feel I have developed and continue to develop. It's a never-ending journey and growth path.
It's awesome. Cris, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Everyone check out beekeeper.io, right? I got that one right?
Beekeeper.io, yeah.
And where else could folks connect? Where could they learn more?
For sure, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I continuously push out content and stories on what I'm learning constantly around the frontline.
We'll have some content for this for you to share there too. Cris, I want to thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Have a good one.